just had a bit of an idea how I can mount some of these rough stones that I've bought. So I thought I'd get one of these crystals and then play around with the idea of mounting it. And I want to do it in sort of like a card style. If you've been following along on my other stuff, you'll see these were an eBay purchase recently, and there's a finished piece that is yeah, silver and lapis pendant, and all the other ones have a spiral. And there was no soldering after I made, I think it was that one, and I worked out I could just create the blob with the heating of the wire, and then the blob would move up the bead, move up the wire, getting bigger and bigger as it went, and you had to be careful that it didn't get too big and it would drop off. So yeah, here's, what have I got here, some Aquamarine, and yeah, so I'm going to create basically a silver card with a bail on the top and a cutout in the middle where the rock will be mounted from two sides with like angled pieces of silver. So let's get into it. So here's a spoon. Let's go straight across there. That should give me a good piece to work with, and not be too wasteful of the rest of the flat silver. For those of you coming in late on the story, I got all these spoons given to me. They were from a deceased estate. The lady had been hoarding all her life, and the guy that went in to clean the place up, he threw it in a fire with a bunch of clothes, not realising that there was some nice silver in there, and it got so fire stained that it ended up yeah, just sitting around until my grandma mentioned that I've been getting into silver work, and he said, here, take this stuff. Just going to anneal it to reduce the stresses that will occur when I flatten it. Be a good time to dunk it in acid if I had a bath deep enough. I could probably fill that jar up a bit more. Incidentally, that fire stain's mostly copper oxide that's come to the surface when it was hot. And this will reduce it back to copper metal. At this point I've stopped breathing, and I will go outside, wash my hands and come back to that. And now we pull that out and have a look at it. The silver's all come bright again. I'll go and wash that off and then polish it up. Looking closely at that, you can see that the copper metal is still at the surface. So what I want to do now is buff that off. Okay, I got my shiny silver back. If I cut a strip straight through there, I probably won't get too much stress when I flatten that out. That's the stone I want to use. It's got a nice bit of sparkle about it on the right angles. Cut this down a bit, trim it up, get the height right. Cut it open in the centre there, and I was just thinking that if I cut it right, I might be able to not do any soldering to set the stone just by using the right placement of bends on a section that will open up from a cut straight down the centre there. I've drawn one straight line on there, and I'll use that as a reference to mark another straight line on the other side once I've cut to that line. Pretty nice. The idea of having a workplace box is something that I really need, because I tend to work in a bit of a mess, and quite often I lose the rock that I'm working with, and I say, where did I put it? And it'll take me another half an hour to locate it. So I've got this idea from another guy I've been watching demos on. I'll put a link in the description. I don't remember his name right now, but yeah, he does some pretty good demos on learning jewellery. So that's what the orange felted box is for. Just making sure that's nice and level. And that went really bad. Look at that. Curled it over, it didn't even cut. I don't know what that was all about. That was shit. Okay. Got a bit of a parallelogram going on with the angle on the bottom there. I need to remove a bit of material on this side. I think it's also a bit high on this side as well, so a little bit more sandy. Just marking the height of the stone there to see how I'm going to cut this blank. I want the rock to sit in the middle here, something like that, and held in place. It's going to look kind of fairly industrial and more like a specimen keeper than an actual jewellery piece, I think. But you know, there's call for that sort of art out there. I've made a decision to change the stone I'm putting in. This one is a little bit skinnier and will fit the dimensions better. It does need some work in the ultrasonic cleaner, but it should be alright. So I've bent the top there and I'll straighten that up once I put the stone back in. Probably a good time to be thinking about putting a bail on. There's a nice little offcut off the spoon. I'll use that as the bail. Still pretty hard. I'll just soften that up. Started to melt a little bit there, but that's okay. It'll give it that patina that will make it look older. You can see that wrinkly look on the top surface here. I'm going to work to leave that on. I'll smooth the sides down, but that'll polish up to give a really nice wrinkly patina. Just working the inside face of that nice and flat by running the saw blade through there. I might open it up and do a bit more work with a file, because I want it to clasp around, not be sitting on the end, but actually bite onto the top of the flat. Once you've used the saw to open up the little gap, you can work a piece of emery cloth in there, and that'll help you get a nice flat surface. Biting really hard on it because it's thicker than the gap is, and that's good because that'll be working that nice and flat. We'll turn it over and do the same on the other side. I've found that learning to hold things like this has become a technique I use a lot. That's looking pretty good. Just open that up a bit. So, I want to open that up. Just like that. I'm happy with that. I'm going to take the stone out and continue with the soldering. Make sure that's nicely centered and at the right height there, and I'll solder that on. You can see it's not perfectly flat where it comes down onto the flat there, but if I'm liberal with the solder, that'll fill that gap up and you won't even see that. This is just borax in tap water. Apply a little bit to the job and then hit it with the torch to cook it off. Otherwise it'll potentially move the solder. Move that crack in the background, it'll probably stop forcing the focal point. The soft solder here, I'll just make a little staple, put it through there, sit it in there and heat it until it slumps in and wicks into the part. Fold that over into a little staple. And it's that sort of thing that sets the amateur apart from the professional. A pro wouldn't have done that. He would have come down slowly on the job with the flame, not blown it out. Let's try again. Flame down a bit. Try and heat the thing evenly. And come back to the centre. Big spiral, come to the centre. Concentrate the heat in a way that'll keep it all even. Start to come up to glow now. Here we go. I think that went well. Yeah, looks good. Go and wash that under the tap. Just having a real close look at how that solder joint went there. I'm pretty happy with that. It looks like it filled the gap completely, and there's a bit of material in there that'll allow me to smooth that out with a file and make that look all nice and rounded. It doesn't damage a chain. I've got a bit of that wrinkling that I spoke about that happened when I was heating the bale material. A bit of wrinkle through here, and you know, initially I'd be worried about that, but I think it'll just add to the charm of the piece, give it a strange sort of aged patina look. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about these teeth yet. I'm thinking of chopping off the corners to make them hexagonal, like half of a hexagon. To help me even up all these lines, I've spent some time flattening those to 90 degrees just to make it more crisp when I finish the piece, so that things aren't bent and wonky. Like I can see, you know, there's a bit of an angle on this one here. It was probably more due to the cut, so I can clean those up now that they're at a 90-degree angle. That should make things look a lot sharper on the finished piece. I've just popped that in there for a look, and I like how that sits. I'm going to go with that and then bend these over at about that point there. So what I'm going to do now is run a point across there to get a mark that'll help me know where to bend those, and also I'm going to chop them off with take off the corner there on each one, so that they're, like I said, half side of a hexagon, and then yeah, fold the point over